Hi everybody, I know you're probably getting a sense of deja vu here, but in this continuing YouTube experiment I've done something a little different with this build, and as well as the full-fat 3-part video series I posted previously, I've also made this semi-skimmed all-in-one director's cut that covers the full project in around 10 minutes, well, maybe closer to 11. Whilst this is mostly for the folks who don't have the time or inclination to spend on the longer multi-part series, if you happen to fancy taking a look at both, well, maybe you could let me know in the comments below or via Twitter which style you prefer. As I say, it's all part of the ongoing YouTube experiment, and it's coming right up after the jingle. One of my regular clients is an interior designer, and I'm making them a straightforward A-frame trestle table that will then be upholstered. When I make these smaller pieces, I draw them out on a full-size board with a known square edge, then use my first components to make a jig or template on the same board. For a minute there I thought I might have been stapling it to the bench. No, it's fine. So now, when we make the next pair, it just has to fit in there to be identical to the others. So I've got my leg blanks cut to length. The next thing I've got to do is put this quite a steep sort of angle there where the legs butt up to the centerpiece, and the only way to do that safely on a miter saw is to do it with a little jig. And I should be able to just ease that up into the cut line, trim that back. After checking that both legs match, I can crack on and cut the angle on the remaining blanks. With our first few done, I can check them against our little Insta-jig, and because I'm only using prepared timber, just ease them with a hand plane where the faces meet to ensure they match. I check each pair of legs and cross pieces on the jig, then put them to one side, marked in sets. I'm marking the domino positions where the legs meet the rail, and I repeat the process across each of the remaining leg sets. Having cut the top rails to length, I'm using our usual trick to measure and cut the bottom rail, before moving on to mark the domino positions, and finally I make a quick test cut before committing myself to the full run. So with the test completed, I can cut double domino slots in the sides of the legs for the cross brace, and on the angled face for the top rail, on the inside face of each cross brace for the bottom rail, and on the angled ends of the cross brace where they meet the legs. For the ends of the bottom rails, I've added the domino trim stop to make centering the mortises easier, and for the top rails I'm using the additional stop for extra support, making the first cuts, then carefully measuring where the second mortise needs to be before making a quick test, and once happy with the fit, I can complete the last of the mortises in the top rail. Now, I haven't actually made one of these before, so I'm doing a dry fit just to check that everything goes together as planned, and to avoid any surprises when it's all covered in glue. I've got to say, that's not half bad. So the actual glue up goes pretty much as planned. I won't make you sit through the whole thing in real time, but one thing the dry fit does help clarify is the order in which the piece needs to be put together. If you get them out of sequence, you can find yourself having to prise things apart in order to fit an important component, and it can quickly become the kind of gluey mess that's best avoided. The glue I'm using only has an open time of around 10 minutes, so I don't like to hang around when it comes to getting the clamps on. and once checked against a flat reference surface, it can be moved aside to make way for the second trestle. So with one trestle under our belt, the second is plain sailing, and I'll just shut up for a minute and let you watch in peace. With the trestles set aside, I'm ripping 12mm birch ply to size. The tabletop will be a laminate of an 18mm core with 12mm top and bottom skin. And I'm using the same thickness on the trestle caps that I'm cutting to size here. With the glue set, I can give the trestles a good sanding to lose any rough edges and also ensure that they're pleasant to handle. So the next stage, at least, you saw me cut the plywood capping pieces to go on the tops of these. And all I've done here, I've marked up the centres of the tops of the trestles and just extended a line down, and I've got the same thing on our boards here, so when they go there I can just look under, line them up. So with all the preparation done, it's an easy job to glue and screw the first 12mm capping piece in place. Following up with the 18mm core, then another piece of 12mm to top it off, all glued and clamped firmly together. Okay, one down, one to go. I need more clamps. Alright, so with the trestles, the last trestle top gluing up, I can be getting on with making the actual tabletop. It's not very big, it's only 1600 long by 700 wide. I'm putting ribs along this. I don't want to make it a solid top, it's going to be really heavy. So with the 18mm core components cut to length and the ribs ripped to width, all that's needed are the ends cutting to size. Then we should be all set to start gluing. With plenty of glue spread evenly with a foam roller, we can carefully mate the two faces together and start clamping them up just as carefully. And with the glue set, we can unclamp the front edge and take care of the ends in the same way. With the ends of the top all clamped up, I'm using my track saw to clean up the edges of the trestle capping pieces, followed by a quick swipe with some P180 abrasive. With the ends of the top unclamped, we can crack on with the remaining long edge, gluing and clamping in the usual way. And still in its clamps, I'm gluing the long ribs into the centre of the top. After a decent interval, the clamps can come off and I can glue on the top skin of 12mm birch, making sure that it all lines up nicely before using every clamp I own, and perhaps one or two that I don't, to squeeze the edges together firmly all the way around. With the glue all set and the clamps off, I can clean up the edges of the top with the track saw, and with the top upside down, I'm using the trestles to mark the positions for the two bottom rails before cutting them to length and fixing them down with glue and screws. Following up with the dab of 2-pack resin filler, and once set, everything gets another round of sanding just to clean it all up. Well, that's it for this week's video. Hope you enjoyed it, hope you found it interesting. It's been an interesting one for me. It's been a long time since I did this kind of, more accurate type of joinery that can't just be covered in filler and painted, even though this is going to be covered in fabric or leather, I'm not sure which. I do try and, you might be wondering, you know, why I've gone to these sort of lengths to get it looking nice, and the simple fact is I'm never going to see this again. You know, it's the nature of the work that you do when you work for another company, an interior designer, who is then going to pass it on to somebody else, and you know, possibly another company before it gets to the final client. And occasionally I get to see, you know, a badly taken you know, cell phone photo of the finished object. So I just like to try and get them looking as nice as they can be before they leave the workshop. It's that simple. So yep, that's it. As always, hope you find it useful, hope you find it interesting. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, share it amongst your friends, and if you're new here, consider subscribing, then you'll be notified whenever I post something new. But for now, that's everything, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.